How's it going, guys? This is Ventures podcast number 2. We're going to talk about a little bit more about myself, and then we're going to get into the part 2 of emotions. So stick around. What's going on, folks? Welcome to part 2 of Ventures podcast. My name is Alan Michael, or Michael Allen, whichever you prefer. I I guess I'm gonna get used to saying that. So first off, I'm gonna talk a little bit more about myself. Introduce myself a little bit more, just to give you a little bit of a rundown of who I am and what I do and what I love to do, my passions, etc., etc. So I am a upcoming music producer. I love producing music. I love making music of all sorts. I picked up playing music when I was younger. I learned the keyboard. It seems like, or the piano, as you would say. It seems like everybody's first instrument is the piano. I started learning when I was 5 years old. My mom would bring me in and out to piano lessons. It was by an older lady. She was very, very, very strict on her lessons. So I kind of took that with me as the years progressed. I did not go to another lesson for a while, so I started listening by ear. So each song I would play, sometimes I would play them by ear, and people were just like, how did you do that? Like, how in the world do you hear this music by ear and play and just pick out the notes? I honestly don't know. It's just it's a talent. It's a talent, blessing, whatever you may call it. But I feel like it's a God thing. I mean, God blessed me with it, and it's something that is supernatural. I believe. But there are plenty of people that have by ear training, when it comes to music. So I applaud them, and I applaud, all of them for learning even more than I did when it came to that. So that's how I started picking up music. Then I would start, my mom and my sisters, they would buy me keyboards after keyboard after keyboard after keyboard, because each one of them, it seems like they did not last too long. So I would just go back and forth with keyboards. I would figure out the sounds, all the little pre-recorded sounds on the keyboard. I would figure out the drum set. The drum sets are what intrigued me the most. I would my mom had this old boom box, and I would kind of record. I would press this was back in the day when the boom box had the cassette player, and you would press play and record at the same time in order to record what you were trying to do. So I figured that out, and all of a sudden I heard my sound back, and I was just like, whoa, that's how you do it. So then I started recording these the drum loops on the keyboard on the cassette. And my mom was pretty mad because these cassettes were pretty important to her. They were old music from my childhood church. The choir would sing, the pastor would do these sermons, and these were all cassette tapes I recorded over. I know that sounds bad, but I had fun. This is how I started to record stuff, and I just started figuring out some things and how to do it. Then I got into the realm. I want to say around high school, I got into the realm of actually using it was actually before that. I started using this little game called Music Maker for PlayStation 2. I don't know if anybody remembers that, but that's how I started doing loops and music and stuff on the PlayStation 2. Even though the loops were already pre-recorded and the tempo was already set, it just grew on me. And I had that game for I don't know how long. And then I guess going back into it, I started getting into more to singing. I've been singing since I was 5 years old as well. I grew up singing in a choir. My mom always took me to choir rehearsal. Never missed a rehearsal, it seemed. I just learned how to sing from the greatest woman alive. Her name is Cora Rhodes. Miss Rhodes is what we would call her. Sometimes we would just call her Miss Rose, because that's how I would hear her name back then. She, I don't know if she's still around, but she was my music teacher for singing, and she taught me how to sing. So huge shout out to her and her family for allowing me to grow with them. And to this day, she still has it. I know the last time I heard her sing, she still has that amazing voice. She has like an opera style voice, and she sang the highest of highs in church growing up. And it was just amazing. She taught me everything I knew about singing. And then I just started growing more into the choir, and eventually grew up in the choir and just started, singing more. Then I guess, rabbit trailing down memory lane here, I started to play the drums. My mom would get me these toys, this toy drum with the stick attached to it, and I would just annoy the mess out of her with this drum. So I would just constantly bang it, and then my mom would just be like, "What are you doing?" Like, I'm making a beat, I'm just like, "This is my music. Do you love it?" But my mom, she would sometimes be busy watching a movie or watching a TV show or something like that. It's just, I would just annoy her, but she enjoyed every minute of it. I still remember her face just looking at me when I was actually trying to make a beat, and she was just like, "Wow, that's that's pretty good." Good memories there. So reminiscing again, I started playing the drums. I did not take lessons in drums. I know. There are a lot of drummers that have not taken lessons in drums. I was one of them. I just kind of picked up the drums by watching and learning, and I just looked at how they played and what they did and how they moved, how they used the sticks, and I just picked it up, and I would just go more and more. I started playing for the church. I would start going to the rehearsals, playing for the church, and then the years went by. I started playing for more churches, including the church I go to now, and then I also sing. And then I started recording more music. I started getting into the different DAWs, we call them music DAWs, like Fruity Loops, the Producer Edition, Logic Pro, all these different music programs, and just different types of apps that you would use on the PC, the Macs, even your phone. Even there were just all these different types of music programs you can use. I started learning how to use them in high school. And then I just got better and better each time I used them. It was amazing. And then I eventually grew into the singing more. I started recording my own music. I started recording covers, and I did my own vocals by myself. I would, layer the vocals and then I just practiced more and more, and it just got better and better. And that's about it about the music journey that I've had. And it's just been an amazing journey, so to say. God has really used me in that journey, and I want to continue to do it. I want to continue to do worship, and things like that. So that's mainly what I do. I'm also in a choir now. And it's been an amazing journey, so far. So yeah, that's a little bit more about me and just the music side of me. And I'll get into a little bit more about myself in the next podcast. But for now, let's get into the topic emotions. This is part 2. So, of course, in the first podcast, I talked about emotions and what triggers them, and how do you feel? And, we talked about depression, anxiety. Those are the main 2 emotions that are going on right now. Now I want to talk about what does the world say about emotions, and what does the Bible say about emotions. So it's really the 2 are very contrast. So basically getting into it, worldly emotions are completely different. So worldly emotions are like happiness, sadness, disgust, fear, surprise, and anger. These are the main emotions that, the world would just kind of define them as. These are happiness, sadness, disgust, fear, surprise, and anger. So worldly emotions, right? Then you have Bible emotions. So what does the Bible say about emotions? It says that your feelings deceive you. This is taken from beingconfidentofthis.com. This is on their website. It says the feelings deceive you more often than you realize. That's why the Bible cautions us to guard our hearts and to avoid trusting in your own wisdom and emotions. Your feelings lie to you. That fact isn't just scientific, it's also biblical. So there are probably people thinking like, well, this is so not true. Like, what I feel is validated. I believe you. What you feel is very validated. Unless you feel that feeling to get attention or you just don't want to feel any way else. It's just you choose to feel it. Now, just to go on another rabbit trail here, I feel like I say rabbit trail a lot. I need to figure out a different word. Maybe highway. So going back into this worldly emotion, when people feel these emotions, it's often not as validated, or it's not as common. It's more often. Well, I take that back. It is very common. I take that back. It is very common. Worldly emotions are very commonly validated by the self and other people around them. They often portray it so people can kind of see how they're feeling, hence social media, hence just in general in high school, hence, all these things that you can just say, what's on your mind, just you tell the whole world. Then you have biblical emotions where they're talking about, hey, your feelings are liars. Anxiety is a liar. Depression is a liar. That is true. Yes, depression and anxiety can be lies. However, they should never, ever, 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 ever be disregarded. Here is why. When someone is feeling this way, there's a lot of things that can go on through their head. Like, what do I do next? And how should I handle it? With this kind of topic, I often try to be careful. When someone tells me I'm just depressed, I just feel like crap. I don't feel like I can go on. I feel suicidal, and it's just like, suicide is such a big word, and it's such a harsh term. And it should not be taken lightly. However, you do have those people that do like to use that for attention. So still, you should still not take that lightly, even if it's just for attention. So with that being said, you tell this person, why do you feel this? Or you ask this person, why do you feel this way? They'll tell you. So, and then you kind of ask them more questions. Well, what made you feel this way? What led to this feeling of depression, and just what led to this? What is all that led to this? This is something that my counselor at the time, my therapist, would ask me, like, what led to this? What is the story that led behind this? And so, knowing me, I would go all the way back to, high school, and I would just go back onto this history of what it led to instead of just what it led to at the moment. So, like I said in the first podcast, it could be traumatic depression, and it could be just like something that happened recently, or it could happen in the future, or whatever the case may be. So, biblical emotion, sorry for the rabbit trail, get it, highway. Biblical emotion is just defined. It's saying that it's a deception, and kind of going off what some of the word says. So when you look at the biblical perspective of emotions, I'd like to look at Philippians chapter 4, 6, and 7. It says, do not be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be known to God. And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds in Jesus Christ. So what that tells me, the very first part says it all. Do not be anxious about anything. It is what it is. It's basically saying don't be anxious. don't worry about anything. Tomorrow worries for itself, as people would say. And as the word would say also. And it says, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be known to God. It's when you pray, and not many people pray, even if it's worldly or biblical emotion, they don't pray because they feel like that the prayer is just, too much work, or, God doesn't hear them. But I can guarantee you, God does hear the prayers of his people. He does hear every single emotion. He hears my emotions. He not only hears them, he sees them. He sees how I feel. If it's joy, he feels that joy. He knows that I have joy. If he feels that I am just depressed and sad, he feels that I'm depressed and sad. So that's one thing you can kind of put together, rather than contrast both worldly and biblical emotions. So this is going on biblical emotion. So basically saying, going back to the verse, and the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. So everything that you want to understand, you don't understand. God only understands it. What I'm saying is, what you're going through and whatever it is you're walking through, God is the only one that understands why you're going through it. So he wants you to come to him. He wants you to vent to him and say, God, I'm frustrated. Why is this happening to me? Now, in good cause, you ask God, why is this happening to me? You may get an answer. Well, this is why. Or you can easily be shown like, hey, what you're going through is just a test. And it can be a test. So those worldly emotions that you choose to feel at that time is because you want to feel validated of those emotions. Like, I feel like this because this is happening. But God says, okay, you feel like this because this is happening, but there's a reason why it's happening, and there's a reason behind it. You may not understand it and you may not see it right now, but wait on the Lord. Like, wait on him. Like, wait on what he says. Read his word. Pray. Ask the Lord for guidance. Ask the Lord, hey, this is what's going on in my heart. I don't know why. So I don't know if this all made sense, but to me, worldly emotion and biblical emotion, it's not just contrasted, but they also come together. If you put them together, God does understand what it feels like. He sees everything. He sees everything that's going on in the world. I mean, people getting killed, people just offing themselves, people not being able to eat, just poverty. There's a lot of things going on that God sees, and he sees why these people are not doing well. Now, here's the better half of it. Joy. You got happiness and everything that it just seems like it comes together. God feels that also. But I feel like as a Christian and as a believer, we're going to struggle with these things. We're going to struggle. It is inevitable. We are going to struggle. The part where we come in and where we fight is when we pray and when we read the word. We combat these emotions, worldly or biblical. We combat them because we wrestle not with flesh and blood. So we wrestle with the spirit, the principalities and the things of this world. So the things of this world are what makes us feel these emotions. So what it talks about in Philippians, but by prayer and supplication and with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. So you're praying, you're saying, God, I thank you, first of all, for giving me everything that you've given me. I thank you for the food on my table and the clothes on my back. I thank you for allowing me to have a job. I thank you for allowing me to have kids, things like whatever you have, being thankful for it. Not only that for the material things, but thanking God for the life that you have, thanking God for another day that you woke up and you saw the sunlight. Not many people got that chance, but you're thanking him for the supplications. Also, and saying, do not be anxious about everything. You're not only saying that, you're praying to God like, hey, listen, I know that I should not worry, but please guide me through this. guide me through this valley as I'm worried about what's ahead. They say worry is a sin. I partially agree. Worry is a sin, truth. But why then are parents worried about their children if it's a sin? This it's just these things they come to my mind. So worry can be a sort of a sin because tomorrow more worries about itself. But if you're worried, you can still go to God in prayer about it. You can ask forgiveness about it. Like, I'm sorry for being worried about something that you already have in control. God still understands that worry no matter what. That's the thing. So with all that being said, this is something that I've been wanting to kind of hit home for a while. I've been wrestling with emotions because I suffer from depression a lot, and quite frequently at times I suffer from it. I don't claim it. I don't say like, this is going to be my life. Like, no, I do have those moments where I do feel depressed and anxious. And I do have those moments where I do have joy and I feel absolute happiness and just satisfaction. But that's not every day. So in those moments, I know myself that I have to rejoice. Rejoice with those who rejoice, weep with those who weep. Romans 12:15 says. So there's a time to rejoice and there's a time to weep. There's a time to feel those worldly emotions. There's a time to feel those biblical emotions. But there's also a time to rejoice. There's also a time to be glad, to know that God knows everything, that God understands all types of emotions, all types of feelings. He understands your heart better than you do. Your heart can deceive you. So that is the reasons why we ask the Lord for guidance on that. Guide your heart on what you feel and validate it with Him, not with the world. That's the difference. Validate it with the Lord, not with the world. So with that being said, that was a lot. With that being said, this is part 2, and this is the final one for emotions. Should you have anything else, if you have anything else that you want to, kind of talk about, pinpoint, feel free to comment in the comment section below on this podcast and the YouTube that I'm going to post. Please don't hesitate to ask any questions. I will be happy to answer them. If you have any more ideas for podcasts and future podcasts, please don't hesitate to drop them in the comment box below. It is going to be great. This is going to be a great podcast season. So I am happy. I'm excited. Thank you so much for listening. I, again, hope that all of this made sense to you. I know my rabbit trails and my highways and byways get out of hand sometimes, but this is just how I process a lot of these thoughts. So first of all, I just thank you. Thank you again for listening, the listener. And join me on my next venture. Thank you so much, and God bless.